All right. So we've talked a couple of things that are plant only. Here is something that's animal only. And these things are called centrioles. And they kind of remind me of Twizzler bites. All right, they're actually part of your cytoskeletal structure. They're made of microtubules. Okay. Remember, those are those sort of tube-like structures that are part of your cell's support system. And these centrioles exist in pairs, and we will use these to organize your chromosomes when we get to the point of talking about cell division. So when we get to mitosis and meiosis later this year, and how we take genetic information and move it around so that when we go to make new cells, those new cells have enough genetic information to function, your centrioles are going to be what kind of organizes all of that. So we'll talk about them as microtubule organizing centers or spindle fiber organizing centers when we get to cell division in a couple of units. But this is the idea here. These guys are animal only. All right. When we look at your plant cells and they go through the process of mitosis, they actually use component proteins that are part of their cell wall and cell membrane structure to move their genetic material around, their DNA around. Animals don't have that cell wall structure, so they're going to have these centrioles instead. Okay, so if we look down kind of a rundown list of things that exist, plant versus animal, you'll see a lot of overlap. Most of the structures are capable of existing in both a plant and an animal cell. Plasma membrane, nucleus, both types of endoplasmic reticulum, your ribosomes, vesicles, your Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, right? Those are all things that are going to be in both. If I run down the plant list and just highlight a couple things that are unique to them, right? Chloroplasts are plant only, cell wall is plant only, and that large central vacuole is plant only. The animal cells are capable of having those smaller vacuoles, things like food vacuoles, for example, or we talked about those contractile vacuoles that also exist in some animal cells. But that big central vacuole that is pretty predominant in most plant cells is a plant only thing. If I go over to my animal cell, what's unique to them? All right. Well, they can have flagella. They don't have to, but they can. Those centrioles are definitely animal only. Lysosomes also animal only. We could also add the contractile vacuole and the food vacuole to this list as well, if those cells are capable of making them. Not every animal cell will have them, but they're capable of being there. So if I look at just some diagrams here, again, these are just one of many types of diagrams you may see of an animal cell and a plant cell, but it gives you a pretty good consistent idea. You will notice in both pictures there are a handful of things here that you aren't responsible for, especially in that plant cell. Things like these Druze crystals you don't need to know. Amyloplasts, we haven't talked about those. That's not something you're responsible for here at this point. Um, but they do a decent job of showing you. This doesn't necessarily mean this will be the exact diagram you see in other worksheets or you see in your textbook or you may see in a test question. So make sure that you're seeing and understanding what these components look like so that you can understand and identify them in any diagram you may come across. The other point here I want to make before we kind of wrap up this part of the notes is the idea that these are models, they're diagrams. They are shoving everything possible that could ever exist in that plant or animal cell that they wish to show you into one picture. No true plant or animal cell really looks like either of these pictures. Um, there is a lot to be said about form and function, right? So, what is that cell required to do in that organism? And as a result, they will have more or less of certain organelles in order to do their job. So, just keep that in mind.